You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. Hey guys, back with another Borderlands 2 mod video, and today I figured that we could talk about a recently repurposed mod for the PC version of Borderlands 2 known as the Randomizer mod. Now before we start, this mod is called Randomizer Reborn and is a community patch style mod that was created by community GitHub user Aaron_0. Randomizer Reborn is an attempt to recreate the original Randomizer mod, or hack, for Borderlands 2 that previously required cheat engine. It's worth noting that this version of Randomizer does not require cheat engine. Now, if you're on Xbox or PlayStation, you won't be able to take advantage of this particular mod, as it makes use of the community patch feature or method that is only available on the PC version. It sucks, but sadly, it is what it is. However, without further ado, let's jump on in and discuss exactly what this mod is and what it does. Now, the Randomizer mod was originally a cheat engine mod or hack for Borderlands 2 that made it so that the game would spawn weapons with any components you could possibly imagine. For example, you could get a pistol with a missing barrel that fired E-Tech launch projectiles, or you could get assault rifles that fired like the Little Evie. Almost any combination you could think of was possible, and if you used to mod Borderlands 2 by creating your own black rarity or hybrid weapons, the Randomizer mod would occasionally allow for weapon parts from different DLCs to combine together, which was something you couldn't do by making your own custom hybrids. So for example, maybe you could get a gun that would have the elephant gun barrel that mixed with the Tatler somehow. Again, pretty much any weapon combination was possible. However, as I understand it, using cheat engine to get this to work was and is inconvenient for a couple of reasons. First, cheat engine is relatively unstable and can occasionally cause your game to crash. However, the second and probably most important issue was that the Randomizer mod uses cheat engine, which can prove to be somewhat dangerous to use if you're playing all your games on Steam. While Borderlands 2 itself doesn't have VAC-protected multiplayer, if you were to use cheat engine while playing Borderlands 2 and forget that cheat engine is still on and, say, log into Counter-Strike or Team Fortress, then Valve will ban your account. However, the beauty of Aaron_0's version of the Randomizer mod is that it doesn't use cheat engine, so you won't have to ever worry about getting a VAC ban. After all, you're just modding an executable and then running a custom script to change how weapons function in the game. And also because Aaron_0's version doesn't require cheat engine, this version of the Randomizer mod may actually be a little bit more stable. As described by Aaron_0 himself, this mod, quote, makes every weapon able to spawn with any barrel, element, accessory, etc. of their respective weapon type. And it also enables 2 accessories on nearly all weapons, so in short, it's complete chaos. What this means is that you could get something like a fire elemental blockhead shotgun from Jacobs, however you can't get a slag Norfleet projectile pistol. In general, I kinda like how you're locked to specific barrels and weapon parts, as you don't have weapons with missing barrels or weapon grips like you might have had with the original Randomizer mod. To sum it up and describe it in a different way, the Randomizer mod is basically an overhaul mod for Borderlands 2's normal loot system. You can get all sorts of wacky stuff like Vladoff Hammerbusters, Jacobs Blockheads with the fire element, Hyperion Tatler SMGs, and possibly whatever else that you can think of. You can also get some weapons that come in Borderlands 2's more exclusive rarities like gold or limescent weapons, or you can also get E-Tech rarity weapons without the E-Tech barrel. And what's also cool is that the Randomizer mod also affects what types of weapons that enemies have as well. So you can fight enemies shooting unkempt herald projectiles, enemies that have E-Tech SMGs, and whatever else you can think of. One thing that is important to note is that if you do decide to activate this mod, it might be a really good idea to do so on a new character or on an existing character that you don't really care too much about. Otherwise, you risk the possibility of this mod deleting some of the gear that you may have spent a lot of time farming for. So, just to reiterate, if you install this mod and load one of your characters, don't blame me when it deletes almost all of your gear. And again, to prevent this from happening, activate this mod and create a new character. You have been warned. Now for the rest of this video, I figured I could go ahead and talk about some of my experiences with this mod. If you're curious, I'll leave a link in the video description that shows you where you can get this mod, as well as a few other things. But if you're still on the fence, I'm now going to talk about this mod maybe a little bit more in depth, so here we go. The Randomizer mod is a really fresh take on Borderlands 2 in my personal opinion, and as I've stressed before, I've found this mod is best enjoyed on a brand new fresh character save. While I wouldn't recommend you use this on your first ever playthrough of the game, it's definitely pretty fun to run the Randomizer mod after you've played Borderlands 2 several times. Unlike in normal Borderlands 2, I actually feel compelled to pick up and try every gun in the game this time around, just to see what it does and how and if it works for my playstyle. As someone that's going to have been playing Borderlands 2 for upwards of 5 years now, it's really nice to see and actually be curious about how loot works again. As I just said, I feel compelled to pick up most weapons just to see how they will or won't work. For vanilla Borderlands 2, I pretty much know what does and doesn't work, so I have the tendency to simply just not pick up most weapons. What I also think is pretty cool is the weird weapon parts combinations that you can sometimes get. Granted, you're mostly limited to just weapon barrels and accessories within weapon types, but I have seen things like automatic hammer busters before, and you can occasionally get random infinity pistols from all of the manufacturers. So if you find that you're having problems with ammo, you can just simply whip out that infinity pistol that you got about 30 minutes back and use that and it works. While it does occasionally look weird, this particular mod does allow the player to have weapons with more than one weapon accessory. So it's possible to have a Jacob sniper with the Tum Tum or Crit Boost accessory, in addition to having the stability accessory. In a sense, this actually makes most weapons better than they normally would be, since you're getting 2 stat boosts at the same time. This is on top of the fact that most weapons that spawn will have a unique weapon barrel from a corresponding weapon type. So in general, things can get pretty crazy and can be fairly powerful if you get the right weapons with the right weapon parts and the right weapon barrels. At the same time though, I found some things are fairly lousy. I once got a shock elemental infection, which unfortunately didn't perform like I expected it to. So ultimately, you'll just have to try things out and see how they work for you. Based on my experiences so far, I would say one of the best parts about this particular mod is the fact that not only do crazy random new weapons drop for the player, however they are also equipped by the various enemies that you encounter. It's nice to fight enemies that aren't using your typical generic assault rifles from various manufacturers, and instead fighting enemies that are using all sorts of weird stuff, like pistols that fire like the Unkempt Herald, SMGs that fire like purple E-Tech projectiles, and I've even encountered a few enemies equipped with assault rifles that fire like the Hail assault rifle does. And in my personal opinion, this is really nice to see, as it makes combat look and feel a lot more dynamic and interesting to me personally. And while it's true that you can occasionally get a badass Nomad or a badass Marauder that has like a Nukem launcher or a B-Shield equipped in the normal game, opening up the possibilities to so many other new weapon types just makes the enemies that you're fighting a whole lot more interesting in my opinion. Especially if you've played through Borderlands 2 several times before. In a certain way, it reminds me of the original Borderlands, where you could encounter enemies that had all sorts of crazy stuff equipped. Some enemies from the original Borderlands could have SMGs that fire in a corkscrew pattern, or maybe other enemies would have legendaries equipped, which would wreck the player's shields. Ultimately, by making the possibilities wide open like this and allowing enemies to carry all sorts of bizarre pistols, SMGs, assault rifles, and whatever else, Aaron Quadruple Zero's mod actually makes the enemies much more interesting to fight. At the same time, the variation of different weapon projectiles found on enemy weapons can actually make the game a little bit harder. For example, sometimes you can encounter enemies that fire weapons that deal area of effect damage, which can quickly weaken you and easily put you in a fight for your life. I found this is especially a problem if I manage to forget to load the randomizer patch and have all of the weapons from my previous play session get deleted. So while I would say your own guns themselves are a bit stronger, I would also say that the weapons that the enemies can use also tend to be a little bit more deadly. That said, melee type enemies tend to be much easier with randomizer on. After all, your weapons improve while their weapons or other methods of dealing damage stay the same. Now, before going into this video, this is actually the first time I had tried a randomizer mod. I had heard about these previously, however, I've got to say that I like the overall concept. In fact, I'm sort of surprised Gearbox didn't make a community-type event like this, where the player base could play through the entire game again, but with all of the weapon parts mixed up. In fact, I would say if Gearbox is somehow out there listening to this video, it might be interesting if you guys incorporated the randomizer mod idea in general into the next game. I could definitely see something like this increasing replayability, and it seems like that the guys over at Gearbox could probably do something really spectacular. At the end of the day, I quite like Aaron Quadruple Zero's version of the randomizer mod for Borderlands 2. If you're someone that has played this game a lot over the past years, think of this mod as a different way to experience the core game that you're already pretty familiar with. Or maybe you've decided to take a little break from Borderlands 2, setting up the randomizer mod might be a great way to get back into the game again. But alright guys, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and let me know what you thought of the video. Otherwise, like this video if you liked it, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.